Here is today's lecture that is about writing reports. Before I start the lecture, I would like to ask you if you have ever reported anything to anyone.
Yes, ma'am, we have written reports, but we
Okay,
don't
what is that?
actually have the idea.
Mm-hmm.
We're not sure about what reports are actually, but we have written reports in for mass communication.
Okay.
For the subject of mass communication.
Ma'am,
Yes.
we are not aware of the correct format, but it's
Yeah.
just we write an overview that what happened, when it happened, where it happened, who was there, and everything.
Yes, you are very right. If you are answering who was there, what happened, where did it happen, it means you are basically answering reporters' questions. You are answering these five W's and one H, to which we call they are reporters' questions. And if I give you the details of these reporters' questions, they are when, where, whom, what, who, and how. So these are reporters' questions. If you could recall any of the reports that you might have listened, you would realize that the news reporter gives you the answers of these five W's. For example, whenever a news about any accident is going on, the newscaster will give you an overview of the accident, and then she would say that let's take you to our news reporter who is present there at the place of that accident, and we would take the details from him. And then she or he, the newscaster, says, over to you, for example, over to you, Salman, who is present there at the moment where the accident has taken place, and he will give us the details of this accident, that how did it actually happen. And then when it comes to the news reporter, he says, yes, I am present there at Riven Road at the moment where an unfortunate accident take place in the morning. The accident took place between a rickshaw and a car, which was coming from the wrong direction. Since it was a bit foggy day, that is the reason the rickshaw driver couldn't see that he was actually coming in a one ways lane, or you may say that it was the car driver's fault, that who was coming in the wrong lane, and because of which the accident took place. There were five people who were sitting in that car, whereas the rickshaw was full of students. You may say that the rickshaw was taking the children to the school. Since they were going to the school, they all were below the age of 10. So as soon as the took place, many people gathered around them and they tried to rescue the students. They When they could see the people who were sitting in the car, they found that two of them were badly injured, whereas the three people who were sitting in the back seats, they remained, let's say, they remained safe and they didn't get any such injury. As far as the students who were sitting in the rickshaw they are concerned, all of them were badly injured, because of the reason that what we can say, the rickshaw was hit very hard by the car, and all of the students fell on the road, and because of which they all got badly injured. um, how did the accident take place? The accident took place because of the rickshaw driver who was taking the students from the wrong direction, or it was because of the overspeeding of the car which was coming from the wrong direction. So where did it take place? It took place at the Riven Road. How did it take place? We have mentioned it. Who were sitting in the car and who were the people who were sitting in the rickshaw? Again, we have discussed it. And when did it take place? It took place in the morning. And what happened actually? Many of the people were badly injured. So you have answered almost all the W's. Sometimes we answer all the five W's, and sometimes we do not, and we cannot answer all the five W's, because it is because of the nature of the accident or the incident that has taken place. But remember that if you are not answering who, whom, what, and where, and sometimes how, your report remains incomplete. So, most of the times, you can notice if you read a report or if you listen to a report, the reporter answers all these W's and H. And if this is not answered, the report remains incomplete. incomplete, and people think that still the information is incomplete. Something more about your reports: the reports are always based on facts, they are factual reports. Somebody asked me once that what is the difference between a report and a short story. So the answer is that the stories are not based on facts, they are superficial. There are superficial heroes in stories, there are imaginary characters in your stories, whereas as far as the reports are concerned, they are always based on facts. If your reports are consist of imaginary characters, it means you are not reporting something that has actually taken place. Secondly, the reports are, most of the times the reports are time bound. Why I am saying most of the times? Because the reports are written about an accident or an incident which has just taken place. If you report something that took place 10 days ago, there is the possibility your audience or your readers will not take interest in it. Sometimes the reports are written a month after the incident or an accident. For example, there was a motorway incident, then there was something like Baldia town, Karachi incident in which many of the workers were burnt alive. And there are so many other such incidents. For example, there were WikiLeaks, there was the report on NAB gives its reports, etc. And most of the times the reports are issued even after a month of the accident or the incident. So sometimes your reports are time bound, and sometimes the reports are written months after the accident or the incident. But whenever the reports are produced, they are always based on the facts. If the facts are not given in the report, nobody is going to consider it a report, and people will not rely on you, or yes, after whatever you write. Right? So these are the basics of writing reports. Are you with me?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Yes,
Then,
ma'am. Yes, fine.
okay, right. So let's move on to writing reports for your newspaper. These are the things that we have already discussed. So there is one more thing about the emotions. Do you think the reporter should be led by his or her emotions, or the reporter should not let his or her emotions dominate him or her? What is your personal opinion about the emotions? Whenever you are reporting something, you have to control your emotions, because when you are led by your emotions, when you are dominated by your emotions, it means unconsciously you start taking sides. So whenever you report something, you should not be led or dominated by your emotions. Rather, you should try to remain unbiased or partial. Fine.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, right. Thank you very much. So let's talk about a good lead. This is kind of headline that you get in a newspaper. Since I'm not a very technical person, I won't be able to use the jargons that are used in by the media people. So I'll simply try to remain on the surface. So you might have noticed that in the newspaper, they try to write the headlines in such a way that people start taking interest in it. This is the same thing that the people who are handling the social media, they do in the same way. For example, whenever you open your social media, whenever you open Twitter, or you open sometimes you open the YouTube, they have given the headline or the lead in such a way that you start taking interest in it. So one thing is quite clear, that your lead or your news headline should be very catchy. It should grab the attention of the reader. Secondly, whatever your keywords are, the keywords that reflect your incident or accident or the story, they must be reflected in your headline or in your lead also. If your lead, your headline does not say whatever your story is, it means people will not take interest in your story, and they would read a few of the sentences, and then they would stop reading, or they would stop watching your news. So always keep in mind that whatever your lead says, the keywords that you are using to grab the attention of the reader, they should be reflected in the coming paragraphs as well. So a few more things, let me see if I have highlighted a few more things for your news lead. um, Yes, one more thing, that whenever you are writing a good lead, you have to tell to your reader that why should the reader listen or read to your story. There should be something of the interest for the reader, or there should be something that may benefit your reader, so that you catch the attention of the reader. And then one more thing, that your, although this is something that I have just said, that your news, your lead, your news should be based on the facts. There should not be superficial news given in your report or in your news. One more thing, that your report should be free of errors. When we talk about the errors, it can be grammatical errors, it can be the errors of the language, it can be errors in your data as well. If there are errors in your data, it means the ones who already know what has taken place or what has actually happened, they would tell it to everyone that the news is not the correct one, there are false news, there the data is not fine, the data is not correct. So people would stop trusting you. Secondly, try to write it grammatically error free. One more thing is very important, that when you were writing your stories there, I had commented on your paper that you have used very good language for your story. But sometimes what happens, you forget to realize the fact that we need some specific kind of words, specific kind of language to write anything. If you are writing a report, if you are writing something for the newspaper, it means you are not targeting the people who are very well versed, you are not targeting the people who are very good with the language, rather you are writing report for someone who is a layman also. So you have to use the language that many of the people would be comfortable with. But again, if you are using the vocabulary, if you are using the sentence structure which is not acceptable for the common people, they would lose interest in it, and definitely you will lose the audience. Then one more tip or one more hint that you can use for writing your reports is that try to write small and simple sentences, so that people keep or they can maintain interest in your reports. Sometimes when you try to introduce complex sentence structured sentences, or when you write complex sentences, people sometimes fail to make the links between different clauses. So in order to keep them engaged in whatever you are writing, try to write simpler sentences, and as per the level of the audience, that people keep maintaining the interest in your writing. Another tip is always try to focus on subject verb agreement while you are writing something. This is something that we had discussed in one of the classes, that how you have to maintain or how you have to keep the subject agreeing with its verb. That is, if you are using singular form of singular subjects, your helping verb or your verb should also be singular. In this way your subject synchronizes or agrees with the verb. If some, at some places you are using singulars and at some places you are using plurals, it means people won't be able to understand कि आप बात किसकी कर रहे हैं. आप किसी सिंगुलर पर्सन की बात कर रहे हैं, या आप एज अ होल कलेक्टिव आइडेंटिटी के तौर पे मुख्तलिफ लोगों की बात कर रहे हैं. सो इन ऑर्डर टू कीप देयर इंटरेस्ट इन योर राइटिंग एंड इन ऑर्डर टू मेक देम engaged, you have to make your document error free in this regard as well. Then you should use transition words. Transition words are something that I had tried to introduce in my story writing lecture also. Transition words का advantage आपको क्या होता है कि transition words lead you from one sentence to the other sentence, and in this way all the ideas, all the sentences remain interconnected, and your audience feels that he or she is taking interest in whatever you are saying. So use your transition words very wisely. Moreover, afterwards, meanwhile, um, सच वर्ड्स आर ट्रांजिशन वर्ड्स जो आपके एक सेंटेंस से आपके रीडर को या आपकी ऑडियंस को दूसरे सेंटेंस की तरफ लेकर जाते हैं, और इस तरह सारे सेंटेंसेस इंटरकनेक्टेड रहते हैं. इन दिस वे people maintain interest in whatever you say. So these were a few tips how you can maintain the interest of the audience in your news. So there are a few examples of good news also. You can read them later on. But if you try to focus on the things that I have mentioned in today's lecture, you would be able to write your effective news or your effective reports. See, so are there questions that you would like to ask?
No, ma'am.